Hi everyone, this is the Queen Bee coming at you, and today I'm going to be using my basic tools. Round nose pliers. I'm actually going to be using the small mandrel. That's the big one. There's the small one on the left. Some flat nylon jaw pliers. Those are useful. My chain nose pliers, of course. And flush cutters, of course. Fold up that. There we go. So, have you ever had any, just kind of leftover stuff in all your supplies and you're, kind of uninspired and you kind of want to make something but you don't know what it is? Well, this is the project for you. I've got a length there of, a couple lengths I think, of smooshed up 26 gauge copper, which is pretty easily unsmooshed. Crystal, those are little 4mm crystal beads. That's candy jade, those are about 8mm. Some vintage beadbox metal beads, they're really cool, they're like an old brass style. I've got this fresh strand of pearls, which is really pretty. They're big too, they're like a good 14mm round. And I've got some vintage beadbox, probably 10mm round glass beads. Those are fabulous beads, by the way. I really like them. I use them in all kinds of projects. But I use them sparingly because they're heavy. I've also got... what else have I got here? I'm emptying out a bag of things. Man, something's stuck in there. Either that or I just can't pull it out that day. I filmed this over a few days just because it was a holiday long weekend, and yeah. Oh, there's the clasp I'll be using. It's a really nice high-end clasp. It's brass, but it's a nicely made clasp. I really liked it. For this project, it was the right scale and it was elegant to go with the pearl and everything, so it goes very well with things. So I'm just gonna sort of decide what I want to do. So I've got some artistic wire here. It's brass. Non-tarnished brass 20 gauge, as you can see. And this is going to be a mixed metal piece. I'm going to use this brass, I'm going to use copper, I'm going to use, what else am I going to use? There's going to be, silver plate, lots of stuff. Just whatever I felt like using. Okay. So here we come to the simple wrap. I've sped myself up so that you don't have to watch me do this in real time. I do have a proper tutorial on this technique, so if you don't know how to do a simple wire wrap yet, I can link it below. But you basically take your pliers, bend the wire backwards and then around a curve, like your round nose pliers. and then you bend the remaining wire around the neck, basically. It's funny to watch it in fast motion. But that's basically it. And then you put whatever beads you want on there, and then you do the same thing to the other end. Once you've done it a few times, it's not hard. There we go. I'm going to put a brass bead on there. And I'm going to do the same thing all over again. So, yeah, if you don't know how to do this and this is too fast for you to get the gist of, that's totally okay. Don't worry about it. I'll link the other video where I do it in real time. But you're going to be doing a lot of this when you're making this necklace. So by the end of this necklace, if you don't have a lot of practice, by the end you'll be a pro. That's one way to think of it. Okay, I'm just pinching down that little bit of excess wire there. There, it's finished. All right, now we're going to move on. Well, sort of. Kind of tricked you. We're going to do the same thing again. That's why I'm sped up. This is not real time at all. If you hear that, that's Henry. Henry. What a cat. So yeah, I'm out of frame and all that stuff because I didn't really, care about capturing all of this in great detail. As, if you're watching this video, you're likely to know how to do this stuff. If you don't, then yeah, you will. You will. I'm just using this mandrel. It's easier to get in there. Nice and close to the stone. Alright, now we're going to add the herringbone aspect to the wrap. So the first part of the herringbone wrap is doing the double loop like you just saw me do in high speed. And for the herringbone, you're going to use your thinner gauge. So this is 26 gauge copper. And you just start by wrapping around at the base of the wrapped loop. And depending how messy you want this wrap to be, you can wrap more or less around the base there. that's up to you. And also, you can make this wrap kind of more exaggerated. The herringbone part will be more exaggerated if you leave long necks where your loops are, but I've left short ones. Okay, so I'm just taking the wire and I'm wrapping it around the other end there and taking it around the beads and then around under the loop there and around the beads and around the other loop. You'll see me doing this a fair bit, so no worries. But it's really very simple, and what's cool about it is it kind of makes the illusion of like chain almost. See? Your components start looking kind of like chunky chain thing elements, I guess, components. So it's a good way of unifying a necklace or a bracelet or whatever you're making. If your beads are all mismatched and all that, it's a cool way of having a unifying effect. My beads were all relatively uniform. I don't have a huge variety of them. So it wasn't such an issue, but I did get the opportunity to vary the amount of beads that I wrapped, and I didn't always wrap the same amount of times around. So some pieces are chunkier, some pieces are long and skinny, and some, are more like this. They're more kind of rounded, average shaped. So ultimately, that's the gist of the necklace. But I'm going to keep going here, and I'll show you a few different things that you might run into along the way that might be helpful. So I'm going to use some of my little crystals here. They're so cute. So if you take your 20 gauge and you try to fit it through a pearl like this, oftentimes it won't fit, which is a bummer. But pearl holes are just small. They're annoying. So what I'm going to do is slip the pearl onto some 26 gauge artistic wire here. When I saw those pearls, I thought they were like giant peas in a pod. So I thought, why not use my chartreuse artistic wire and make it look like a pea pod? That would be so cute. So I'm wrapping right from the spool right now. Okay, so the pearls are there, but I'm wrapping twice the end around my little mandrel thing. Because it is only 26 gauge wire, we don't want the loop to be super duper flimsy. That's a nifty trick, that double looping method, because it does add a lot of structure to your wrap. When you're using gemstones or pearls, or so many beads come and the holes are just so tiny, and it's annoying because it can be prohibitive to use those in your design, even though they're the perfect color or whatever. So this is one way to get around it. So I'm just kind of pinching the end of that wire around there. And we're going to do this all completely on the spool, which is so nice, because then you don't have to worry about how much wire to cut off. So push the pearls down to your first wrap, and we're going to make another once around, twice around, and then we're going to wrap around a couple of times like that, and then go down to the other end and wrap around and come up to the top again. And it's the same thing that we just did Only this way it's all attached to the spool, which is so great. It's a good way to go. There we go. And you can do this to your heart's content. I love the chartreuse wire by Artistic Wire. The color, that's the actual name of the color, chartreuse. It's more like a sour apple kind of green. It's not really chartreuse in the true definition of the color, but you know. So if you can find it, snag it. It's really nice. I've used it in a lot of projects. It lasts a long time because you only need to use it sparingly because it's a vibrant green, so you don't need a ton of it to make a huge statement. So there's my little peapod. I'm just fussing with the wires and getting the pearls to sit in there the way I want. There we go. Cute little peapod. La la. That's a cute little pendant all on its own. It's super cute. Oh, and I was listening to some music. Alright, the dangle. So I like to put a dangle on the clasp. It's just a nice finish. So I slid on some candy jade, and I just bent the wire. Just a little tiny bend right there. Now this copper is from Michael's bead landing stuff, so it's coated with an anti-tarnish, so it's harder to work with, but I'm going to do it anyway because I only have a little bit of it there and I'd like to use some. And I'm just wrapping the copper around this big candy jade bead. I had the intention of doing another look with it, but it just wasn't working. So in this case, I'm just wrapping super fast. wrapping around it, making it look kind of like it's in a bezel of some sort. And I'm not overly worried about messiness or whatever. Now, I'm just going to bend straight out there, still on the spool, and I'm going to take my mandrel, like I have been, making a wrapped loop, still holding the spool, and wrapping, and then I'm going to just get those wraps the way I want, and I'm going to cut off with a bit of extra length, and the extra length there, I was gonna try and make another loop at the bottom, but then it became a dangle instead because it wasn't gonna work. So I'm wrapping this extra length through the wire that's going around the bead. And the reason is because I need to stabilize the wraps so they don't come loose from around the bead, and I'm stabilizing the loop as well because it's kind of it's not really solidly attached to anything. So that's what that extra length of copper was for. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but my husband is out on the couch and he is having a good snore right now. So if you can hear it, this kind of weird lawnmower thing, that's him. He came home early from work today. Alright. So I'm basically done. I'm just kind of fussing about making sure this is all in order. And that's ultimately how it looks. So the loop isn't going anywhere. The wraps around the bead aren't going to move. And, well, unless I want them to with my pliers. But, yeah, it's just a nice little touch to have on your clasp on the back of your necklace. I really like that look. So, here we are at the assembly. All I did to assemble everything was I used 20 gauge silver plated jump rings, 2 of them per connection. So that kind of adds a little bit of fullness. I didn't have jump rings of a thicker gauge, so I thought, well, we'll just double them up because I've got lots of them. So there it is. I made several components. I don't know how many, and I tried to vary them a bunch. And it's a really fun, funky kind of boho look, I would say. So there's some thicker, bigger, chunkier components and some kind of skinny little ones. And then there's those brass beads that I think are just so nice in unifying everything. And that's ultimately it. So please do like, subscribe, share, go and like me on Facebook, and I will see you next time. Bye!